I've been in the PCIT program here at Resolve for about 2 months. I actually started seeing a psychiatrist for my son. We were having some behavioral problems at his school pretty frequently, and so I went to the psychologist, and she asked my husband and I just a list of questions and had a survey, and she said, I think it's really important for you guys to move forward with some of the things that she wanted us to do with play therapy. So she actually gave us a list of people that did play therapy in the area, and I had never really heard about that. So I started making phone calls and found that the waiting lists were typically 4 to 5 months on average, and she had mentioned that she wanted us to get in twice a week as soon as possible because she felt like my son had enough going on that it warranted that effort, but also he was right in the sweet spot where she felt like with immediate action he could really improve over the long term and be really successful in some behavior modification. So I started making phone calls, I called the hospitals, I called everybody on the list, and couldn't find anybody that could get us in. So I thought, well...
Just 1 second?
Yeah, I started calling around the big hospitals in the area like Children's Mercy, KU Med, also made contact with all of the people on the list and couldn't get anywhere, got on waiting lists everywhere, and nobody else actually said anything else about other providers or made recommendations or said anything else. So I just started searching play therapy on Google, and just, you do the thing with Google where you find one search and then you change you tweak what you're looking for a little bit differently. So and then I started looking for family therapy or child therapy, and I came across Resolve at PCIT, and I thought, well, that's an interesting concept, parent-child interaction therapy. That's probably actually what we need, is some help figuring out how to work together. And the thing that struck me about PCIT was that everything I read was about teaching the parents how to do this long term with the children, whereas a traditional play therapy method would be the therapist with Teddy, independent of the interaction with the parents. So I started doing some research, and there were 4 or 5 places in the area that popped up for PCIT, and Resolve was actually second on the list. And so there was an online form that I filled out, and I actually got a phone call back from Resolve within 2 hours, talked to the woman on the phone, felt like we had a good connection, and I came in, and that was the start. So we've been doing it probably for about a month and a half, 2 months, and we've actually seen a complete turnaround with my son. We have actually been through 3 different daycares, and 2 in the last 6 months because his behaviors were so frequent and intense. And so we had actually been here for 3 weeks. The first session, you just meet with the therapist, and they talk about what they can do differently and what sort of things you're seeing. And then the second session, they bring your child in. And then the third session is all about education, and then they teach you the skills that you need to do at home. So at that point, the daycare that we were at said that they couldn't continue. It was just a struggle with my son. So actually that night, in a panic, which all parents can relate to, right? You don't have care for your kid and you work, and I actually emailed Jennifer at 7 o'clock at night, and I said, oh my gosh, we have been let go from our daycare, we're struggling, can you give us any help? And she actually, surprisingly, an hour later responded in an email with a list of contacts with services that could help us, or some folks that she knew, and I made a lot of phone calls, hit the ground running, and he's now been at his new daycare for 3 weeks now. We've seen a complete turnaround. We prepped them before we started with, this is a difficult kid and we're going through this program, and we gave them Jennifer's name. She reached out and spoke with them, and actually just a few days ago we met with them to get a progress update on my son, and they were very surprised and didn't believe the stories that we had about him because they hadn't seen any of those behaviors in the 3 weeks that he's been there. Yeah, it's been really impressive. Very good, actually. It could make me cry. My son has always been difficult. And we, regardless of that, right, you love your children, but it's really been a struggle for my immediate family. I have an older daughter, and my extended family as well, visiting my parents, doing things like holidays, doing birthday parties, and it's really been a godsend. We are able to do things now as a group and out in public. I don't have to split up. If my older daughter wants to do something so that someone stays at home with my son, he's able to do things with us. We're branching out and doing things like visiting Deanna Rose or going to the zoo, more so than we ever have before, because everybody has been in that moment where your child is acting up and there's nothing you can do about it, and you feel intense guilt, and they're unhappy and you're unhappy, and you just can't help it. It's human nature, right? You have an intense amount of embarrassment that your family or your kid is going through this, and other parents and other people are looking at you. And so we have, for the longest time, avoided situations which could result in that, and now we're kind of revisiting those, and it's been a blessing, very positive. Aside from all of the pieces that are going on with my family, positively, it's also, I'm hopeful for the turnaround. Nobody ever wants to talk about finances, but we had actually gotten to the point with my son where we were having to pay for a one-on-one. Most traditionally, people would think about that like in the public school system, like a para. So he's doing Montessori school, and he had a full-time person whose job was to do nothing but work with him to help control his behaviors. And so we started at this other daycare for the first 3 weeks. We were paying for an additional person, and that was the meeting we had. And they said, we're not seeing these behaviors, and we don't think we need to do this anymore. So the future is looking bright across all fronts for us. I would say I am very much a person that wants to do your research and understand everything from every aspect of my life. If I'm doing something new at work, if I am making a decision about a diet I want to do, if I'm interviewing for a new pediatrician, I'm very much about doing your research. And I did the same with PCIT, and a lot of the research that I found was that over and over in cases with children like my son that have a lot of behavioral outbursts that for whatever reason can't easily be explained with a particular medical diagnosis that's just really behavior based, they've all turned around and been able to make a change. And you'll always wonder when you're doing research if you find overly positive results and you don't find anything negative, and I wondered about that too, but my personal experiences have been very positive, not only with Jennifer but with PCIT in general.